Happy day students! Welcome to part 2 video of chapter number 3, the Delhi Sultans. In this video, we shall see about how the expansion of the Delhi Sultanate happened with the time periods under different rulers, from garrison towns to empire. Early 13th century, the control of Delhi Sultans rarely went beyond the heavily fortified towns. Now, I want you to understand what is the meaning of heavily fortified towns. Heavily fortified towns stand against any form of attack, and it is occupied by garrisons. So if you could see in this picture, it has very thick, firm fort-like structures that is built to protect the empire. Right. Now it is occupied by garrisons. Who are these garrisons? Garrisons are group of troops which contains soldiers who are always ready, stationed in a fort or town to defend it and protect it from any form of attack from the opposite rulers. The sultans rarely controlled the hinterland. Now, what do I mean by saying hinterland? Hinterland is actually the land remote away from the coast. See, always the sultans, the emperors, cannot have the extended control over all of the regions that comes under the power of the sultans. Okay, so the sultan will be there in the capital city. The other regions, cities, states that comes under the sultan's control will be governed by a governor who takes care of the other cities or states that comes under the sultan's power. Now, some areas that are remote, away from the control of the sultans is what we call hinterland. Alright, so it is observed that rarely the sultans control the hinterland and cities and were dependent on trade, tribute, and plunder for supplies. Controlling the garrison towns, especially in the distant Bengal, in the east, and Sindh from Delhi, northern part, was very difficult for the sultans. Now, communication routes also were cut due to rebellions. Now you have to understand the rebellions were armed force against the government themselves. And this started off with a war, and due to bad weather also, sometimes the communication between the rulers and the hinterland regions, that is from the garrison towns to the hinterland regions, was very, very difficult. Consolidation of the hinterlands. Consolidation, that is, all this time we understood that the Delhi Sultans, because of the hinterlands at remote areas, were not being able to be brought under the direct control of the sultans. The consolidation started to have a great control over all of the cities or states that came under the sultan's power. Now this consolidation changes started to occur during the time period of Ghiyasuddin Balban, and further expansion happened under Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq. The first expansions were set to consolidate the internal frontiers, that is, region that already came under the control of the sultans, and aimed at consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison towns. Now, what exactly happened during these campaigns? The first point was consolidating the Doab lands between Ganga and Yamuna rivers. Doab, D-O-A-B, Doab. Okay, so consolidating the Doab lands, D-O-A-B. Now, what do I mean by saying Doab? Doab is actually the land between two rivers. So, land between the Ganga and Yamuna rivers were consolidated first. How? By removing the hunter-gatherers and pastoralists from their habitat. Okay, so the lands expelled from the pastoralist hunters and gatherers were given off to peasants, and agriculture was encouraged. And new fortress, garrison towns, new towns were established, especially to protect and project trade route and regional trade. The second expansion along the external frontiers was concentrated. Now, when I said internal frontiers, I told you internal means inside. The second is external frontiers, which means the land or area that doesn't come under the control of the ruler, so it is outside. Expansion over South India started under Alauddin Khalji and culminated point of highest development happened during the time period of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. In their campaigns, Sultanate's armies captured elephants, horses, and slaves. People were brought in as slaves, carried away precious metal also. Muhammad bin Tughlaq, his time was 150 years. During his end of his reign, the armies of the Sultanate had marched across large part of the subcontinent, defeated rival armies, seized the cities, collected tax from the peasants, and dispensed justice, circle of justice. But how complete and effective was its control over such a vast territory? So by this, you can understand that the Delhi Sultans were all over the subcontinent, that is India, except under the rule of Alauddin Khalji. The reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, vast territory had no effective control. Next is about the Masjid, which is mosque, and Masjid is an Arabic word. Place of Muslims prostrates in reverence to Allah. The way they bend, knee down, and pray happens here. In a congregational mosque, Muslims read their prayer, which is called namaz, together. Now, congregational mosque here refers to Jama Masjid, also called Masjid-e-Jami. The members of the congregation choose the most learned men of the group as their leader, who is called as Imam, for the rituals of prayer to be done. He delivers the sermon of the prayer, and the sermon, which is called khutbah, is delivered orally on every Fridays. During the prayer, the Muslims stand facing Mecca, which is towards the west from India, and this direction is called Qibla. The Sultans of Delhi built mosques to show that they protected Islam and Muslims. To create a sense of community believers, it was necessary to reinforce this belief because Muslims came from a variety of backgrounds themselves. Hope you enjoyed the content of part 2 video. Let's get back in part 3 video. Thank you. Have a nice day.